July 26, 2024 is a date that every sports fan's marked in their diary. It marks Olympic and Paralympic Summer Games. From July 26 to August 11th, the 33rd Olympiad in modern history takes place. And from August 28 to September 8, the 17th Paralympic Games. It's a huge celebration, set in a historic backdrop that's well known to the French, Paris. For a number of years now, the City of Light's been undergoing a thorough transformation to ensure that it's equal to the occasion and that athletes from all over the world are able to shine. But once the last international stars have left, the last medals have been awarded, and the cameras have been switched off, what will be left of the Olympic Games? The question is all the more worrying in that, from Atlanta to Rio, Athens to Montreal, there are numerous examples of poor post-Olympic management. Colossal debts, disproportionate infrastructures, ecological disaster. The factors are many, but they all lead to the same point, that of Olympic disaster. Can the post-Olympic era envisioned by the Paris 2024 organizers translate into a brighter future? That's what we're going to find out today in this new episode of Looking For. Organizers. Some have spent lavishly to make the event as beautiful as possible, without worrying about the next day's accounts. In 2016, the Paris 2024 organizers announced an estimated overall cost of the Games of 6.2 billion euros, a bill that's risen sharply since then, since it now stands at 8.8 billion euros. Despite this cost overrun, Paris 2024 is still below the cost of the last Olympics, 10 to 12 billion euros for Tokyo or 16 billion for Rio in 2016. But the undisputed champion of the Summer Games remains Beijing, which paid almost 40 billion euros to host the event in 2008. A huge financial effort, some of the Olympics have become financial gulfs for financially fragile countries. An Olympic hangover of which several countries have already had bitter experience. One of the most emblematic cases is that of Greece. In 2004, the birthplace of the Olympic Games was preparing to host the Summer Games in Athens. A return to its roots, organized at great expense and costing the country between 9 and 13 billion euros, an exorbitant price for Greece. In 2011, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Jacques Rogge, declared that in Greece, 2 to 3% of the country's external debt has increased due to the cost of the Games. This economic burden is all the greater in that, while the festivities were great, they did not enable the country to capitalize on them with the hoped-for development of its economy. To which we must add another problem, that of the white elephants. Rest assured, this is not an animal documentary. A white elephant is a metaphor used in urban planning to designate an infrastructure megaproject that turns out to be disproportionate and actually becomes a financial burden due to its operating and maintenance costs. One explanation for the term comes from the fact that ambassadors from the Kingdom of Siam, the former name of present-day Thailand, used to offer these animals as diplomatic gifts. A poison gift, as they were extremely costly for the countries concerned to maintain. The Faliro Olympic Stadium in the south of Athens is just one example. With a capacity of 9,000, it had notably hosted the beach volleyball events. However, the stadium's not been used since 2004. And without sufficient maintenance, it's gradually falling into ruin. It alone cost 9 million euros to build. And this isn't an isolated case. The Owaka Olympic Complex in the north of the city, which hosted the athletics events, is now closed. The metal roof structure was deemed too dangerous by the authorities following safety tests. The velodrome, which boasts one of the best tracks in the world, also had to be closed due to seepage, with rain deteriorating the quality of the track. The Hellenikon complex, once home to canoeing, kayaking, baseball, field hockey, and softball, is now almost completely derelict. While not all the buildings have suffered this unenviable fate, the legacy of the Games is a bitter one. Excessive maintenance and safety costs, useless infrastructure, looting and degradation of the stadiums. The reasons for this disenchantment are many. 20 years after the Games, the bill remains high in a country in financial difficulties, which has experienced a succession of crises over the last 15 years. To prevent the arrival of white elephants in Paris, the organizers of the 2024 Olympics have promised a flagship measure: 95% of the infrastructure at Olympic venues is either already existing and renovated for the occasion, or temporary. These work sites also enable the renovation of the city's heritage, such is the case with the Grand Palais. Close to the public since March 2021, the Art Deco venue built for the 1900 Universal Exhibition has embarked on a major renovation project that will last until 2026. During the Games, the grandiose venue will host the fencing and taekwondo events. Built between the municipalities of Saint-Denis, Seine, and Lille-Saint-Denis, the Olympic Village will also be converted into housing, offices, and shops. A total of 6,000 residents and employees are expected by autumn. A state of mind that does not prevent some controversy, as in the case of the shooting sport event. The competition was originally scheduled to take place at the Terrain des Essences in La Courneuve. However, in 2022, the site was deemed too small to accommodate all the spectators. Construction work was halted, and the existing National Shooting Center in Châteauroux will serve as the venue for the event. If you'd like to find out more about the various new or renovated venues where the Paris Olympics will be held this summer, I've already posted a video on the subject. You'll see just how much the City of Lights will be transformed for the competition. Another aspect of the post-Olympic period in Paris is public transport. When the City of Light was chosen to host the Olympics were seen as a fantastic opportunity to speed up plans to expand public transport in the Paris region. However, plans for the Grand Paris Express have fallen behind schedule. Only Line 12, Line 14, and part of RER-E will be in service on time. The arrival of Lines 15, 16, and 17, and the Charles de Gaulle Express linking the airport to the north of the capital with the center of Paris will have to wait. Although the Games were intended to act as a tremendous boost to this titanic project, the expected effect clearly failed to live up to expectations, and the work will continue for years to come. Another nasty surprise for users, this time during the Games, was the cost of public transport. It was supposed to be free for those lucky enough to have tickets to attend the competitions. In fact, Île-de-France Mobilité, the organization managing transport in the region, has decided to completely rethink its plans. From July 20th to September 8th, the price of metro tickets will rise to €4 instead of 2.15, and RER tickets will cost €1 more. Bad news for the 10 to 15 million spectators expected to attend the Games in Paris. The organizers are also keen to win the Green Medal for ecology. To this end, the emphasis has been placed on respect for biodiversity, with a flagship project to clean up the Seine and Marne rivers, where the open water swimming and triathlon events are to be held. A promise that echoes that of Rio 2016. For the Games in Rio de Janeiro's marvelous city, a major plan was announced to clean up Guanabara Bay, into which sewage and waste are discharged every day. On the ground, however, no long-term measures have been taken to remedy the situation. A few months before the Games, numerous boats took it in turns to remove the visible pollution from the water. Unfortunately, after the sailing events were held in the bay and the Olympic Games were over, no solution was found to counteract the discharge of part of the sewage into the bay. Although a new cleanup plan is now being mooted for 2030, it remains highly hypothetical for the time being. But in Paris, the situation seems different. To achieve the goal of bathing in the Seine during the Olympic Games and beyond, a budget of nearly €1.4 billion has been put on the table. With the construction of storage basins and a network of underground pipes, the infrastructure is gradually being inaugurated before the start of the Games. The aim? To rid the Seine and Marne rivers of the wastewater that flows into the stormwater network and ends up in these waterways, bringing with it Escherichia coli and Enterococcus bacteria, which can cause diarrhea and vomiting. The public authorities seem confident. Anne Hidalgo and Emmanuel Macron have both expressed their desire to swim in the Seine before the Olympic Games. For the time being, however, the staging of the events is in doubt. Indeed, if there are major storms in the days leading up to the events, the new infrastructures could be overwhelmed, allowing a mixture of rainwater and wastewater to flow into the Seine, a situation which led to the cancellation of the test events in August 2023. In any case, by 2025, Paris City Hall is aiming to open at least 3 bathing sites, one near the Parc de Bercy, another on the Île aussi de Grenelle, and a third on the Île Saint-Louis in the heart of the capital. In terms of employment, the post-Olympic period is another factor to be taken into account. The Summer Games will be a major economic boon, employing at least 150,000 people. But what happens afterwards? For the Île-de-France region, the future looks rather bleak. If no action's taken, 35,000 people could be out of work after the Games. On a completely different note, some NGOs are denouncing an intensification of evictions of homeless people in the capital, as well as a massive deployment of cameras, drones, and police to ensure security for the event. Some fear that these exceptional measures will continue beyond the end of the festivities. The same security controls were in place for the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. Since then, China's steadily strengthened its security apparatus, making ever greater use of new technologies to the detriment of individual freedoms. While there may seem to be many examples of post-Olympic dysfunction, this is not the case across the board. Of the 23 cities that have hosted the Summer Olympics in the modern era, some have managed to capitalize on the Olympic effect. Host city in 1992, the capital of Catalonia succeeded in becoming a global city. Reorganization of the city and its infrastructure, all of which have since been put to good use and opening up to the world. Everything has changed for the Games, and for the better. The development of Barcelona's coastline to open the city up to the sea, even after Barceloneta, is one of the key examples of this successful transition. And it's on this positive note that we'll be leaving you today. I hope you enjoyed this new episode. If so, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thanks, and see you soon on Looking For.